Love 'em or hate 'em, I've always been obsessed with barbershop quartets. Barbershop quartets are a distinctly American musical tradition that emerged in the late 19th century. The style grew out of African American communities where men would often gather in social spaces, such as barbershops, to harmonize popular songs of the day. See, in high school, specifically senior year, I was a part of the school choir. And through learning choir vocal techniques, I learned how much it is closely associated and taught through physics, and specifically acoustics. The reason I find barbershop quartets so fascinating has to do with how we perceive music and notes at all ourselves. When you hear a note, often or not, without context, you can kind of hear what instrument it is. When an E string is plucked on a guitar versus a vocalist singing an E, you can tell. And as a younger kid, it might have sounded dumb, but I kind of wondered. The speaker is vibrating the correct amount of times for an E for both instances, but how can you tell what is human and how can you tell what is a guitar versus a clarinet or even a tuned drum? Well, the answer has to do with harmonics. And harmonics are everywhere. Harmonics are basically a bunch of notes that are on top of the fundamental note, each getting quieter as they get higher up. This series, called the harmonic series, is seen all throughout nature, and it's why it's naturally occurring in almost every sound you hear. It's the only reason that we are able to talk and communicate and understand each other without sounding like mumbling blobs. If I sang a note, say, at 50 hertz, the loudest sound you would hear would be a 50 hertz sine wave, but then right above it you would hear an octave most prevalently, then a fifth, then a major third, going up infinitely, but also getting infinitely quieter as you go along, so you don't really notice all of them. And the mix of volumes of all of these different overtones or harmonics is what makes a sound have its timbre. It's what gives it its identifying sound. Being able to control these harmonics to your own advantage is very important when a group is singing together harmoniously. In choir, there are many things that are important, but something I didn't really think about other than just singing on the correct pitch is also vowel shape. All 50 people in the room could be singing the correct note, but if they all have a different mouth shape for the vowel ah, it can make the group sound like it's disagreeing with itself and not sound like one big singer, but a bunch of disagreeing voices trying to get to a similar goal. But typically when singing one big ringing out chord, the vocal director would do some kind of hand signal to specify how he wants the vowel shaped. And once he did that hand gesture and we all mimicked him, the chord kind of locked into place. Because what you're doing when you're changing the vowel sounds is you're actually changing the mix and the volume of all of the overtones, all of the harmonics on top of the fundamental. Because these are notes too that you are trying to tune and align with each other. That's why vocal groups are so hard to tune. Barbershop quartets often take this to the next level because typically it is four men in a group. They use harmonics and overtones to their advantage, even making an overtone sound just as loud as one of the singers, kind of having a fifth voice effect. But also typically in choir and barbershop quartet singing, we're also doing more to have a chord kind of fill its space. And what that is using just intonation. See, when we think about the 12 notes on a piano, it's important to understand that those 12 notes are a compromise. Somewhere down the line of European music tradition, they wanted to standardize all of the notes. Because globalization was becoming more of a thing, they wanted it to be more of a kind of universal language. And also because they were inventing musical instruments like the piano or the fretted lute that would eventually turn into the guitar. These were instruments that, unlike the voice, you couldn't just change the note mid-concert, or at least not nearly as easily. And the reason that they would have to do this is because just intonation doesn't really work in all of the keys, not in the same way at least, because just intonation chooses its harmonic series based on the relative note. It all has to do with context, ratios, and relativity. Essentially, if you chose a perfect fifth from a C note and calling that G, if you then play another note where maybe that's the flat seventh, it's not in the correct place because now G is used for a different purpose in the context, but you can't change the tuning of a piano mid-concert, especially not mid-performance. So the tuning of a bunch of notes were changed, some more drastically than others, so all of the notes sound relatively good in each key, and this is a sound that we've become so accustomed to. And it sounds fine for us. We all grew up with 12-tone equal temperament, but the reason that barbershop quartets and other choral singing sounds so different and maybe ethereal and full, it has to do with just intonation, because it sounds good in our heads because it's based on pure ratios. Listen to this major chord being played on the piano versus being sung by a just intonation choir. The reason that they're able to make what is kind of called the fifth voice is because of interference of these notes. Sound is just waves, and they can interfere with each other. If there's a wave going up and down, and then another wave coming in that's going down and up, perfectly canceling it out, you're just going to get net nothing. But if you have a wave going up and down, another wave going up and down in the same phase, well, it's going to effectively double the amplitude, double the volume. That result can get you chords that you wouldn't be able to get with a four-man group, or notes way higher than anyone is comfortable letting out for that long. The harmonic series is one of my favorite topics when it comes to music theory, and I don't talk about music theory a whole lot on this channel, but it is something that interests me a lot. So even if you're not a huge fan of the barbershop sound, I know it's a bit niche, I hope you can kind of appreciate the work that goes into it. It's certainly not an easy thing. If you could go ahead, scroll down, and click that subscribe button and the like button, it's completely free and it helps me out a ton. Appreciate it. Anyway, that's going to do it for our discussion this week. I would love if you guys continue the discussion in the comments. I'll be reading all of them, responding to them, ask questions, give answers. I'm no expert in this field, but it's just something I love to discuss. Feel free to check out my Instagram. I'll be posting some music covers and some updates on there of my life here at college. And yeah, other than that, it's great to be back making videos again, and I'll see you guys in the next one.